Well, I want to officially welcome you to our first virtual monthly meeting. We've had a few weekly meetups, which have been pretty small, pretty informal, and they've been a lot of fun, a little show and tell, and just some camaraderie. Just as a reminder, the weekly meetups are every Wednesday at 7 p.m. on Zoom, and then our monthly meetings are going to be the fourth Wednesday at 7. Just a couple of quick announcements. The call for artists will be going out in a couple of days. I'm going to also include a few links you've probably already seen for different funding options for artists. I met Zali a few months ago. He contacted me and asked for some information about taking a workshop. I immediately went and looked at his site, and I'm thinking, what is there I could possibly teach this guy he doesn't know already? I was blown away with his work. But what I discovered was that he has a high degree of curiosity. He's interested in learning lots of different things. He just wanted to explore, and we had a very fun session. I think I may have learned more than he did, but it was a really interesting evening. His work is both technically immaculate, imaginatively exceptional, and the fluidity of his forms turns stone into a dance of space and light. And I mean, I find magic just looking at his pieces. They're not just exquisite, but they breathe. I mean, these things are alive. So Zali, thanks for being our first virtual interviewee. I'm going to let you. I have a slide presentation, and you tell me when to bring it up and what you want to talk about. But let's just start with you kind of giving us the big picture, like who are you, where are you from?
Yeah, big picture. I'm Zali. Been in Portland about, moved in 2016 from Boston area, where we were for about almost 10 years. And live here with my partner Tova and our two little ones, Eslin and Carver, 4 and 6. And yeah, I'm a stone carver. I grew up being a stone carver. I grew up with two parents as sculptors and stone carvers. They would say they'd never use the S word. I think they were very adamantly stone carvers. But I didn't really even use the A word until I was 30. It never really occurred to me. I never chose to be an artist. I think it was just a bit overdetermined. You know, through my 20s, I'd done a lot of graphic design. I owned a restaurant at one point. I've always been creative, but stepping onto the path and really owning it was a matter of I think owning my own heritage and figuring out what to do next. We were in Boston. It was 2013, and my mom called and said, you know, your pop has cancer. They're giving him 9 months to live. So I quit my job. I'd always worked in kind of social change work, nonprofits, grassroots organizations, and quit my job and moved back out to Arizona. Figured 9 months, okay, let's be here. And Tova called me up 3 days later and said that she was pregnant. And it was 9 months exactly. We had this, I was back and forth. We had a 4-day home birth, and then a week later, a 4-day home death back in Arizona. And we were just in stun whirlwind life change mode. And I didn't want to go back to my old job. And it was the first time as an adult that I'd really spent any time back in my parents' studio. And I just started carving, and it felt right. Uh, like, oh,
Had you, I mean, you had carved some stone before that in your parents'.
yeah. I mean, I grew up in their shop. I was homeschooled. Like, I had a little bench in the corner when I was 6 years old, and I probably carved a
Your own
couple
little stash of rocks to play with.
you know, like, and it's not easy. I think any stone carver will tell you there's probably a day's worth of impartable information, and then it's just flying time. Like, there's really not that much to know. There's a few different tools. You take the stone away. That's all there is, really. And then it's just sense and intuition and what you want to do with it. So it's not hard, I don't think. But so yeah, I knew how. You do a 36 grit, 80 grit, 120 grit, all the way to 600 grit, 1200, whatever, and then you're done. Sand it, polish it, oil it, wax it, and sell it. So I did.
So that's the technical side of it.
Yeah.
But your concept. So how did you get to these vessels that are like these little things that hold spirits? I mean, they're just, I mean, not alcoholic spirits, but they hold like apparition spirits.
I think like the bowl form, the vessel form is, I don't know how I got there. I mean, it's a form that I learned from my parents. They did plenty of them too. I think mine are different in subtle ways. I think it's funny because my mom's she'll look at a piece and she'll say, I would never ever do anything like this. This is so completely different from anything that I do. But if somebody else looked at the two of the pieces together, I think they might have a harder time telling the difference, at least with that form, but also vessels. We've been making vessels for as long as we've been making. I mean, it's one of the 7 fundamental archetypes. And that's one thing I really love about having a vessel or having a creative archetype to follow. It boxes you in. Like when I had the restaurant, we had a waffle restaurant, and so that was the creative boundary. It was like, what can you fit in a waffle maker, So you could wake up every day and figure out a different form of a vessel and never repeat yourself once. Yeah.
I just learned yesterday that gypsum, which comes from alabaster, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
actually approved by the FDA as a food additive, and it's added to things like flour. So you were probably chucking rocks into that waffle maker and didn't even know it.
Well, so gypsum, alabaster is the gem grade or the art grade form of gypsum, and it's what we make plaster of Paris out of, and also sheetrock and plaster and all that. And I've got a bit of vendetta against National Gypsum, which basically owns every alabaster deposit in the country, and they're miners or rapists, and they take this gorgeous stone and they crush it up and they sell it at $7 a ton, and they have no sense of its aesthetic value or worth. So the alabaster deposits in this country are being decimated.
Is that your primary material?
Yeah, that's what I love to carve. It's like carving butter, though I do I do a lot more, but that's kind of the fundamental. That's the basis of.
So is this all done with hand tools?
No. We'll go. Is it shop time? I don't. Shop.
Do you want to go through some examples first, or shop?
Yeah, I can do that. So hand tools, I can't. They just take so long. Power tools just speed up the hand. So I'm going to, let's see here. I'm going to flip this around here. Okay, we're in the living room. here's one of my larger pieces. This is, I call her womb form here. And oh, do you see the backyard? I'm building an aquaponics system in the backyard, so it looks like a huge pile of white man shit right now. But so this is a larger piece here. And then here's another large piece here, and that's on some local walnut granite. This
Zali, how thick are the walls of this piece? The light goes right through it.
Yeah, it's about 2.5 inches, 2 inches thick on these. But on my small pieces, I go much thinner, say 1/4 inch or so. But I just love the inside of that shit.
And then you have to polish the inside and the outside.
Yeah, she goes all the way down in there. I'm figuring out, I actually want to wire her up with some LEDs. It's hard to find some LEDs that don't look tacky. I'm also looking for, I love fire, and a lot of the small vessels become candle holders. And everybody always says, well, you should use those LED candle holders, and they're terrible. They really are absolutely awful. So I've decided I need to figure out how to program my own LED candle that doesn't look like complete shite. So here's some of the smaller pieces. I lit up a few with candles here. Yeah, this is, so I do a lot of functional forms. This is the super recent piece I just did. This is agate right here. And this is a cedar tooth knife right there. So that's lapidary work. And then here's juniper out from Bend and orange alabaster from Utah, pipe right there. And then here's kind of my bread and butter work that I can sell and make all day, every day. And these are small. You can see my hand here. And this is Arizona alabaster. And around the rim, I put pipestone and soapstone. Or sometimes I'll just leave them rough right here.
So it must be tricky trying to work materials that have different resilience.
Yeah, no, definitely from the technical side, the alabaster wears down a whole lot quicker than the soapstone, at least. This is a very hard steatite. It's from Virginia, so you have to use a very hard backed abrasive to do it, so that you don't you work them evenly.
Right.
Let's see here, and then over here, what do I have?
So we have better images of a lot of these.
Yeah. I've been doing some boats. I want to work on a couple more right now. Yeah, so here's a couple pieces. That's kind of the house, the form. Yeah. Okay, and then I'm going to show you the walkway completely. It keeps the riffraff off. I have a bit of a materials problem. I told you that earlier. Haha. But here's my studio. And, it's small, and I've only up until now, those pieces out there are about the largest that I've ever worked here. So I've got my lapidary. This is a Fordham station for wet working. Harder stones, lots of diamond bits here. All abrasives. So walking in here and go slow. Drill bits, kind of in process pieces here. more in-process pieces here.
Wow.
Some nice fun pieces of wood here. I come around here, and here's really my grinding station. In here, this is about a 2-foot piece that I'm going to do something with. Working on a little chess set out of granite here. Give you scope here. I think that's the pond shape. I'm not set on it yet. Another boat shape I'm working on. So this, yeah, y'all see kind of my scale and my scope and my tools here. Here's my fast motor and my slow motor and my angle grinder and different tools right here.
It's a lot of tools.
Yeah, I have a problem. It's a problem. Mostly I use a lot of snap-on abrasives, different discs, different grits. Here's it. So I think mostly if you come from metalworking, you just take your disc and that's your disc and you don't do anything to it. But if you feather it or you cut different shapes, you can create a lot of different contours. And that's how I dig in deep into a piece. I'll take put a small disc and feather it on a long mandrel, and that's how I carve the void inside of a form.
Zali, I want to pause here before you leave your studio and see if anybody has a question. If you have a question, just unmute yourself and let's hear it.
It's Sue, Zali. If I ever get out of this situation, may I come and carve with you? Okay, I want to. And I want to collect alabaster with you. Alabaster is my favorite stone to carve. Because of all this stuff you're saying, the translucence, really.
Yeah, I think it's the queen. If they called jade the king of stones, alabaster is totally the queen of stones.
Oh.
And I hear that there's an alabaster deposit in Eastern Oregon that I need to get out to.
I'm with you. I know Eastern Oregon a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. It's a plan.
Fruit gathering.
In 3 years, maybe.
Great. Thanks, Sue.
Anybody else have a question for Zali before we move along?
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
Zali,
Hi, this is Shelley. I'm wondering how, like what percentage of the tools that you have are from your parents? And what's your favorite tool that you like to use even now that belonged to one of your stone carving parents?
Interesting. Hi, Shelley. I think, like definitely none of the actual tools. But I think one of their innovations was putting the stone to the motor. And that's something that I learned from them. I think traditionally in stone carving, you put the tool to the stone. And when you put the stone to the tool, you can have a greater level of intimacy with it, at least when you're talking about power tools and grinders. You get to hold it. It's really almost like a belly dance where like here, let's see if I can get the right angle. Put that there. And if I've got a piece right here, I'll have it against my belly and I'm kind of dancing it here, and I've got a lot of control and a lot of control over the amount of pressure I put and the angle. And it's a lot harder to do that when you're holding, you know, holding the angle grinder like that.
Right.
Yeah, I do.
So it's more feel than sight then.
Oh, it's totally a tactile process. It's a total tactile process. I do have a couple pieces of, let me switch back over here. Nice. Some of my father's rasps right there. He'd put wood handles on those. So yeah, I do have a couple of actual tools of my parents, absolutely. But I don't usually use them anymore.
Yeah, my father was a welder, and he's got a helmet, but of course it's pretty archaic. All the welding helmets now are auto darkening, and his, you have to like flip it manually. So I have it mounted on the wall, but I don't actually use it.
Yeah, but I love having them around. It's such a reminder. It's like a precious. It's a sacrament for me. I feel like I'm not sure I would or I could use it, but I could also never, ever get rid of it. Yeah. Thanks, Shelley.
Thank you.
So
Go ahead.
the mask stuff that goes on, what are you doing for protection with a mask?
Oh, PP&E? Yeah. Oh, I totally do. Yeah. I mean, depending what. Number one, I've got a huge high volume exhaust fan right there, and that sucks out most of the dust real quick. And then depending what I'm working, I've got P100s. I've got a full face shield right there if I'm working in any silicates. Alabaster is benign. You don't want a lung full of it, but it won't give you silicosis. It doesn't have any heavy metals. And that's one of the things that I like about woodworking. I do have eye protection and hearing protection too. Yeah.
Question?
Yeah.
Yeah, Zali, this is Katie.
Katie.
I've noticed that you went kind of from your basic bowl shape, and then you did a kind of womb form, and you started doing boats. And I'm wondering if that was kind of accidental, or whether there was some motivation to the boat form.
Maui from Moana. I've got kids.
Oh yeah, okay. Is that what triggered it?
Yeah, that's totally what triggered it.
No way. Okay.
Yeah. No, is the boats of our ancestors. And
yeah, I mean, it's still a container, but.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of it is about, and that reminds me to show you, there's Maui's hook right there, if anybody's seen Moana. So yeah, I'm always doing this and that for the kids, like wood swords or hooks or, gee, where's a magic wand? I'd like to think there's a wand around here. Oh, no, that's a flute. I don't know. There's a staff. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of kids.
That's great. That's
too.
great. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions before we move on?
Yeah, I have one. I have two, actually. Is there a good local source for alabaster?
In terms of buying it, the best guy is Neolithic Stone out in Vancouver, British Columbia. And that's probably the best supplier on the West Coast. Also Arc City down in kind of LA area but probably the number one supplier of alabaster and any sculptural material is 2 Sculpt, numeral 2 sculpt.org. It's Miles, and he is outside of Kansas City. And I think if every professional stone carver around usually buys their stuff from him.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question is, the alabaster is fairly soft as rocks go. Is it soft enough so you could use carbide bits like a plain old Dremel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. It's interchangeable with hardwood. So, you know, most of my abrasives here are silicon carbide or zirconia alumina, and a lot of it are for metal shop or wood shop sort of applications. And that's what I use on all the alabaster. I'll cut it with either a diamond blade or carbide tipped bandsaw blade. Yeah, it's only for the harder stuff that I'll go over the lapidary saw with.
That's really cool. It makes it really accessible.
Yeah, it's such a lovely material, and I think one of the tragic things for me is there's so much. There's kind of a machismo in stone carving that I think comes from the European kind of classical stone sculpture, where it's like this image of this huge man with a sledgehammer going dunk, junk, junk, and it's not like that at all. The sound of even hammer and chisel is tap 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 tap. It's much more about mental stamina than strength, but because of that stereotype, there's this preference towards harder stones, which I think just misses the point of the medium, because harder doesn't mean more difficult, and softer can often be more difficult than people conflate Mohs hardness with difficulty, if that makes any sense.
It does, yeah.
It can be a lot more challenging to carve a softer stone, but you can also do things with it that you simply could never do with granite. I mean, nobody goes to 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch walls in granite because you can't do it with when you need to put like such percussive force behind it or such torque to carve it. So that's one of the things that I just love about alabaster, is it's so soft that you can do some pretty incredible things with it. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Zali, let's take a look at some of the images that you sent me and
Sure.
talk about each one.
Mhm.
I'm gonna share the screen.
Okay.
And you tell me when to advance.
I love that piece. That's that was a bit earlier. I mean, again, I'm 36. I've only been at this really for 6 years full time, like full bore. And the last year has changed for me, but that was an altar form that was piled on top of each other, and that's laminated through. And that went in Boston at Craft Boston in like 2014, I think. Yeah, next. Yeah. Beautiful piece.
Sorry, quick question. You said laminated, so it's glued together and then carved?
Yeah, exactly. I slabbed it up. There's 4 different stones. Well, yeah, four, if I can remember, 4 different types, kind of a range of colors that I laminated up. And that's using just regular 5-minute epoxy.
Those surfaces have to be highly polished.
Yeah. So I laminated it a little bit bigger, and then I recarved it as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I have Zali's website and his email address up there just in case, and I will include that in the follow-up. Or I think we're going to post the video of this event.
Good.
You can come back and look at it at a later time.
Hmm.
So let me see if I can advance here. There we go. This looks more ceremonial.
Yeah, Judaica series that I did. I'm Jewish, and that's always, well, also the connection with fire and stone and ceremony runs.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I did. There was this is when we were back east, a really pretty vibrant Judaica show that I would do every year. So I do a lot of yahrzeit holders, menorahs, that sort of thing for it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you can advance. Yeah, that's another Sabbath set there.
Wow.
How large are those?
Just handheld, you know. Yeah, small pieces. Mm-hmm. Probably 4-inch diameter, 5-inch diameter.
And those are alabaster also?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a nice booth shot. When I was doing, I haven't done like a art fair in about over a year, but I try for about 25 pieces at a show, and that gives you just some scale of the size of pieces that I've done in the past. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Beautiful.
Well, yeah.
What's the scale on this piece?
That was a taller form, 13 inches tall, let's say. Yeah.
It's such an incredible piece of rock to begin with.
I love that. Mm-hmm.
When you have a piece like this in the rough, do you have a clear idea of what it's going to look like polished?
I mean,
Or do you discover that as you get into the finer?
No, it's all, there's no control. That's, I mean, again, this is not, with any sort of natural material. I don't know if you guys are getting this.
I think you muted yourself, Zali.
Yeah.
Unmute.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw what I was showing you just now. I'll show you my rough pile after we're
Hang
done.
on. Let me stop screen sharing so we can see your camera again. Okay.
Okay. No, you don't have control. This is my current rough pile. And when you get into a piece of stone, I mean, over time, you develop a sense of what's inside of it. But it's ultimately, there's no, it's not a homogeneous medium. It just isn't, and there's no way to make it so. And that's
so that rock you just showed us is similar to the vessel we just saw.
Yeah, I'd say I probably cut that out of a piece about like this, and this
Wow.
right there. And this is the Arizona stone. It's geologically identical to the Italian deposit, the famous Volterra deposit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they're going back to my thing about national gypsum and sheetrock. There they treat it as a sacred medium, and here it's used to make mansions. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go back to screen share again. And let's move on to the next piece.
Zali, did you find that stone yourself?
Yes. Yeah. And there,
Yeah.
that's another. Well, it's not a laminate form. You can see those vertical lines around the rim. So I pieced together that piece of orange. The orange stone comes from Utah in very thin veins. So you got to kind of cut and fit to get that rim around there. It's one of my holy bowls.
Zali, Alyssa posted a question. Is alabaster food safe?
It's food safe, but water, whenever I've done any water forms, I put a architectural sealant on it. So it doesn't hold up super well over time to water. But yes, food safe. Like you said, Chess, you can eat it. Yeah.
Okay.
Zali, what sort of adhesive would you use on between stone and wood?
Yeah, you like my go-to is if you switch me back to my visual, Chaz. Let's see here. In my glue box, I use a lot of 5-minute epoxy, a lot of CA glue, hobby store stuff. But then I'll use Opticon for water clear UV durable finishes. I've also started using a UV set glue. So I've got my where is it? Oh yeah, it's right here. Yeah, a UV light here, so I'll apply the glue. And then since Alabaster's translucent, the UV penetrates pretty well. So yeah, I play around a lot, but 5-minute epoxy is kind of my go-to, and that's what I use for joins.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to some of these images here.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm interested in your photography. It is absolutely stunning. Do you do it yourself?
I do it myself, and it's so because I'm so like I feel bad kind of because one time I spent like $500 on 3 professional photos, and I thought I could do it better, so I spent like $100 on a super basic photo setup off some cheap internet site, and that is a gray backdrop, just a gray paper backdrop, and black plexiglass on my kitchen table and my iPhone.
Wow. But the earlier one, the one just before this?
Yeah, all of them.
It looks like the lighting is, you're doing some special things with the lighting. Is that true?
I have 2 front lights behind those kind of drape. I'm not a photographer. It's like it's a big kind of tent on a tripod, 2 tripods in front with that kind of tent, so it disperses the light. And I'm using 6000K light on the front, and then I have a top spot that's shining down, a narrow spot into the center of the piece that is usually about a 2700 to 3000K warm light. And that's what I use. Yeah, it's a like basic photo setup. Yeah.
You're really a master photographer too, I have to say, besides being a sculptor.
Well, I think what do they say about photographers, like it's your keep rate, the number of photos that you have to take to get a real keeper, and good photographers have a real high keep rate, and I have a very low keep rate. So.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one here. This is a really curious form. I'm dying
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
one of those animals. I went through a couple years ago this Cairn series with just stacking rocks on rocks on rocks, and that's some beach tumble from the coast on top. So yeah, thanks. A little animal form there. Purple heart legs, alabaster body, and then all Oregon materials on top. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and I've been playing around with some I guess ceremonial jewelry sort of wearables. That was part of a marital gift, his and hers fertility necklaces. And the his, you can see, is an ocarina there. So I carved out that beach rock, river rock there, and made a little fipple ocarina out of it. Mm-hmm. That also had a his and hers marital daggers. Yeah.
I have a question again about your photography. How did you get that? How did you get that?
Yeah, so it's a gray, same gray paper backdrop, and then on top of the table is a piece of glass, and then I've got my two front lights that have the dispersal things on them. They look like tents, and then my spot coming down into the center of the piece, and then a fourth spot on the back, just giving that little light on the back of the backdrop, if I've described that well.
Fantastic. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And that was that same photo session. I just took the spot off the back so you can't see the gray, and I rolled it way back, and I've just got the top spot on those now. So you can see the glass on top of the gray paper.
Great effect, really.
The only thing that bugs me, you can see the line where the glass ends, and I've been meaning to Photoshop that one out, but it's on the list.
Hey, Zali, I have a question.
Yeah, Amber.
You said you connected with your heritage through all this work. What is your heritage?
I think with growing up the child of two artist parents, I grew up with it. It was just ubiquitous with the aesthetic, the house that I grew up in, the community. I took it for granted in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways I didn't, but I never really owned it as my own or as something that I could do until after my pop passed. And I think in a lot of ways it's been a posthumous conversation with him following his path, and my mom's, and following the forms that they've created and taking the next step on different forms. But I mean, every time I make something that this is perfect photo to put up at this point, because I feel like every time I make something that I think, oh yeah, because my parents were fully self-supporting professional artists for 45 years. Before I was born, every time I came up with something, carved something that I thought that they had never done, usually my mom's like, oh yeah, we did a series of those in the 70s. These I call them lingam stones to be classy, but they're stone dildos. And and I thought, oh yeah, they never, and they totally did those. So yeah. If that answers your question at all, Amber.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, I have a feeling this photo is upside down. Is that correct?
That is, it's hard to tell, isn't it?
I mean, it's
Yes,
lighter
it is
here than
upside
here.
down.
Usually
It's
the
upside
reflection is darker.
Yeah, it's upside down.
Huh. All right, I'll correct that later.
Ain't no thing. And y'all saw this piece that I have yet to sell, still in the living room, and that has a candle in it there.
Zali, can I ask what kind of price tag this piece has on it?
Yes, you may ask. I would love to take home $8,000 for that.
That seems like a bargain.
I think it is. I think gutsy. It hasn't sold. I haven't sold a piece for that amount of money yet. And my mom says I need to up the prices. She's carved roses for her career, and she had this masterpiece that she carved when I was born. My grandma, who was always judgmental, said, well, now that you're a mom, you can't be an artist too. So she said, fuck you, and carved a masterpiece. And through the 80s, she had like 5-10 grand on it, and it never sold. And through the 90s, she kind of bumped it up a little bit. Maybe it was like 15 or 20 grand. And an auctioneer at Sotheby's off the book said, you don't ever sell it for less than 75 grand, but she never had the self-confidence to put that price tag on it. And so the most that she ever put on it was like 30,000, I think. And in like 2006 or something, my pop was setting it up and she wasn't there. And he said, well, it's been 30 years. I'm putting 75 grand on it. And boom, it sold immediately.
Wow.
So I think the piece has to match the price, and there has to be congruence between those two things. And there also has to be congruence with your own sense of self-worth. And yeah. I'd love to get $8,000 for a piece like that. I think it's worth 15, 16. And
What's the size on this again?
about 3 feet high.
Oh, geez.
Oh, yeah.
You're kidding.
It's a big piece. It's one of the, it probably started as a 500-pound piece. It's down to 100.
Wow.
Not that there's any relationship between size or time and value. Yeah.
Is this one hollow?
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. All right, let's move on to the next one. That's a different scale.
Yeah. Little rose quartz heart there. Yeah, I did about 2 summers ago, I did a bunch of those. That was fun.
So the finish on that, you mentioned earlier that after it's polished, then you oil it, wax it?
On alabaster, I'll take it to 600 or 800, but that's rose quartz, and I'll take that all the way to 10,000, 10, 12,000, and I use diamond pastes on those.
Wow.
Don't you see a little bit of the Venus of Willendorf in there?
I love that. I never had before, but yeah.
Very, very round form, yeah. I see it.
Wow.
And here we are back at sea.
How are the boat forms doing?
Experimental. I haven't sold one yet, but I've got about 5 that I'd call finished right now. Let's say I've got 4 boxed up that I need to find a place to put. But that's all in the past year or so. And the important thing here, I shouldn't be passing myself off full time, is this. I was full time for 5 years, and last August, September, I just hit a wall, a total wall. I was at home, like, trying to balance being a stay-at-home dad and be full-time sculptor and do 10, 12 shows a year. And then all of a sudden I didn't get into like half the shows that I was wanting to get into, and yada, yada. And then I went through 3 transmissions and 3 separate vehicles in 2 months. And like the universe was saying, like, switch gears. So, so I got a job for the first time in 10 years this past February. So it's been just over a year now. And I'm on the build team at a design company here in Portland, doing huge, big corporate builds, like corporate interiors and flashy stuff. And it's been definitely an education for me in terms of what doing large scale work is. Not using natural materials. It's all dimensional plywood and steel and plexiglass and all that sort of stuff. And what can I say? I'm not ready to be done yet. I'm really craving being back working for myself and by myself and making my own work. But I'm great. It's like a paid vacation. I mean, number one, it's fully within my wheelhouse, building things, making things, but all I have to do is show up and somebody tells me what to do, and it's already sold and it's already designed, and it's a fun team. And I'm not sure what my next step is with this. I'm feeling not yet ready to let it go, and not yet ready to step back in. I'm still kind of incorporating what I'm learning into my own work and trying to create a vision of what the next step in my process might be. I don't want to do circuit shows, or at least do circuit shows as my full living. And this has been me understanding a different way to be an artisty, designery sort of a person. So I'm grateful for it. How did I get on this? Oh, how are the boats doing? Yes, I started making the boat since I got this job. So I haven't done a show since last August. So I'm right now, I think, just building a collection of work that is not, that isn't just my bread and butter, what I know I can make that I can sell sort of stuff. So it's giving me a little bit of time to play and be experimental in my own shop, in my own process.
So you listed a number of galleries. Are you actively working with all of them currently?
Actually, I need to update my website. So Peterson Roth just, I guess, dropped me. I don't know. They said, like, that's the Bend Gallery. I went and picked up my work from there. They sold a bunch right when I started, and then it just kind of stopped. They stopped selling it. So I went and picked up my work from there about a month ago or so. And Ken, who owns the gallery, said, you know, like, when you have new stuff, let's talk in a year, whenever the time is right. And then, but the others, yes, they've still got pieces, but I don't know, you guys know galleries, or I don't think my experience is so different from anybody else's. Like, galleries don't sell very often. When they do, it's really nice and it makes you feel good and it's a nice check to get. But I don't know, somebody once told me to be a gallery artist, you've got to have 250 grand in work out in galleries.
Hmm.
But, you know, it's like having 2 years of work out in the world to be able to get a monthly check. And
Zali, you have your thumb over your lens.
oh, do I?
I'm gonna switch back to a view of you, but there we go. Okay,
There we go. Okay.
now you're live again. Anybody else have any questions for Zali?
I'm wondering if you thought about teaching.
I haven't so much, though. I've thought about applying for an MFA program before. Is that what you mean by teaching?
No.
No? Okay.
Well, that's one way, but I was just
Yeah.
thinking in your studio, like a
Mhm.
private lessons or something.
Yeah, like from time to time it's come up and people have come over to learn. I feel like one thing I said at the beginning is that really there's no more than a day or a couple day of information to give about stone work or woodworking, direct carving. And then it's just playing. But yeah, I'll teach. Sure. Thank you.
I was going to ask the same question. Any other questions? There's a few more pieces of work that we can go through. I'll go back to screen share again. So we have a pipe.
Yeah. It's about like 2-foot pipe, steatite and walnut there. I like making ceremonial or functional pieces, not even ceremonial pieces, but things that you use, things that are an active part of your life or something that's intimate to you that you want to have in your bedroom or active part of your life.
So the putting a flame to that, it's all good. Like, you know, it's like a glass pipe.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
totally functional. Best pipe you'll ever smoke.
Nice. Peace pipe.
So it's black steatite?
Yeah, yeah.
What we have here.
It's a container. Do you have both photos of it? That's black and white marble. And oh no, so yeah. Oh, that's another and red cedar base, but that's just showing that it's a container right there. So the top lifts on there. Mm-hmm. Another one of those cairn
Pretty amazing
forms.
piece.
It's about, I think, 12 inches tall, say five with the container. And those are containers too, the vessel at the bottom and the top lifts off.
Beautiful. How could you use this in a ceremonial atmosphere?
I've made about 8 urns. I've done urns before, or also holding just precious things. I don't know. What do I keep in mine? I keep a lot of incense in them, or cedar resins, or rocks. I keep a lot of rocks in my rocks, actually.
This is a question I've been asking a number of people lately. What is it you feel like you have to do? And that's not necessarily a practical question, but from your heart, what is it that has to be done in your life, and how far are you from accomplishing it? Like, is there an obstacle or a barrier keeping you from doing your true calling?
I mean, I think one of the things that got me on this path, I was an activist for a lot of years. Then I had a business. Then I did sustainability consulting. Then I did a lot of different things I played around with before I arrived here. And I think that there are a lot of slippery slopes in this world. Social or terms that you can lose sight of what they mean, what the goal is. Social change or social justice or making a living or making money, or pick whatever your goal is. It can get muddled, but making the world more beautiful is a very clear and concise thing that is, at least from my perspective, far more difficult to muddle than many of the other goals.
Could I ask one question?
Sure, Bill.
Thank you very much for a very, very impressive presentation. You talk a lot about a lot of these pieces being ceremonial. Do these come from your Jewish heritage, or are there other cultures that you're going to? It struck me some of them looked as if they might be Native American. So I just need to know which heritage you're drawing on.
Yeah, I know they don't, except for the explicitly Judaica pieces that you'd seen. And I hope that they don't look like they've been taken or appropriated. I think one of the things that we, as contemporary American society, craves deeply is ceremony, is process, is something that we've been deprived of as orphans of modernity. Like the modern world has lost any sense or root in ceremony. And I think one of my goals is to be able to provide the objects for contemporary contemplative practice that doesn't need to have we don't need to appropriate it from anywhere else. We have as much right as any other human being to create our own objects of ceremony or of contemplation. And so that's what I try to do, is make them without necessarily pulling imagery or form. And I try to remain as oblivious as I can of what other forms look like. I don't have a background in art history or archaeology. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, Amber.
What kind of activism were you involved in back in the day?
Sustainability work, and a lot of, well, in Arizona, a lot of immigration work. That was kind of men's violence, immigration, and sustainability. It was kind of my three cornerstone things that I did and are still dear to my heart. But I'm not like a professional nonprofit grassroots worker anymore.
Good for you. That's cool.
Well, folks, I want to thank Zali for taking us on a virtual tour through his studio and sharing his work with us and his insights. This is, I mean, this format has been very different, but this presentation has also been very different. And
thank you so much, everybody. I'm so grateful for the opportunity and to virtually meet all you, and I look forward to meeting in person someday. But thank you for letting me share who I am and what I've been doing.